Okay, so for more on this, I'm joined by Robert Huish. He is the Associate Dean of Research at Dalhousie University, Faculty of Social Science. Robert, it's good to have you on the show, particularly right now, because U.S. President Donald Trump has very recently said that American forces have, and this are his words, totally obliterated every military target on Kharg Island. And that's a small island in the Persian Gulf. It is just before the Strait of Hormuz. But can you explain to us, I mean, if that is the case, what kind of a blow to Iran that is?
Yeah, so this is the forbidden island that is right now in charge of exporting about 90% of Iran's crude oil capacity. And most of that market is in China. So right now with the war that's going on between Israel, the United States, and Iran, about 15% of the global oil market is sort of stranded, which is why we're seeing price spikes all over the place. Now, that doesn't really include Iranian oil to Western markets because that's not supposed to exist. But where Iran's oil does go to is China, about 1.6 million barrels a day. And on that island of Kharg Island, there's a capacity to actually go up to 7 million barrels a day. So what we're seeing here is, as Trump has said, it's only just the military targets. There's no oil wells that have actually gone up. But it's essentially a dysfunctional island now. So if China's depending on getting oil from Iran right now, that just got taken out of the equation. And I'll just say that this is coming just before the anticipated visit of Donald Trump to China. So what has been a regional war up until this point may just go more global as a result of this action.
Okay, you call it, a few things I want to ask you about there. You call it dysfunctional now in the event that the military capability of Kharg Island has been, I suppose, eliminated if it is true that that's what's happened here. So how is it not functional?
Well, the whole island was secured by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So it wasn't just like like Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, where there'd be just workers who work in oil just coming over and working there. This was military run. And so if those personnel, if those facilities are inoperational as a result, it is going to have a direct impact on any sort of exports out of Kharg Island. And it also sends a message to the Revolutionary Guard that they're vulnerable even in that space. So this is probably not the first attack on Kharg Island that we're going to expect. And the second one will definitely have an impact on China's market.
If the military capability on Kharg Island has been eliminated, does that make the Strait of Hormuz potentially more safe?
I wouldn't say so, because there's still a lot of anxiety about both military and civilian ships in the region. It is an absolute kill box when it comes to any sort of aggression that can come out, either sea-based or land-based. So the volatility there is probably only going to increase going forward. And if there's anything that's illuminated from this, is to see that maybe the intention of why this war broke out between the US and Iran and Israel is to try to put that economic pressure on China's oil dependency on Iran. Much in the same way as we saw in Venezuela, Mr. Trump thought, remove the head of state, and then from there, the rest of the government will follow my orders. That's not happening in Iran. We're seeing that there's a lot of divisions in the streets with protests against the regime, some for the regime. So they're in a situation right now where it would make sense that they're trying to use their next big position of power, which is to put pressure on China's supply for oil supply going out of Iran to China.
Yeah, and so you just touched on this. Thousands of civilians on both sides of this conflict gathered for a rally in Tehran this morning. What do you make of the decision to proceed with a mass demonstration? I mean, there's obviously, it would seem obvious risks would be involved there.
Absolutely. And you know what? Of anything that we're watching with this war right now, it is going to be the protesters in the streets that will be the barometer of how successful any sort of regime change is going to occur. There's a huge Iranian diaspora that wants to see the Revolutionary Guard gone, the clerics gone as well, even the reformers. What are they going to do there? But if there are movements of repression against the protesters, against the Ayatollah, and against the Revolutionary Guard, if we see that repression start to break out and internet getting cut and the whole deal, then we can assume that there's still a lot of fight left in the Revolutionary Guard. So anything that we're hearing from Mr. Trump or Mr. Netanyahu, that they've wiped out the military and everything is over, I wouldn't buy that until we see the protesters in Tehran begin to take over more public spaces. Until then, I think the regime has still got a bit of fight left in it.
Yeah, 2 weeks in, and we've been talking about that sort of since the beginning. Will there be that uprising? And I think yet to see that. What do you make of Iran's positioning at this point in the fight back? And to what end is there still fight left in the regime?
Right. Yeah, and it's not it's a fight back in the sense of not matching the U.S. dollar for dollar spent or technological superiority. This is an entrenched war, and the goal, I think, of the Iranian side is to draw the U.S. into a boots on the ground physical presence in the area, if not in the country. And the reason for that is the amount of expenditure that both Israel and the United States spends every single day on this war. Israel was going between $20 million and $200 million a day just in air defenses. And with the U.S. Navy and the Air Force in the region, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars a day getting that force supplied. So the more expenditure that Iran can draw from the U.S. and Israel into their targets in Iran, that's the long game, is to try to draw that very big, expensive military into a conflict that they just can't afford to fight. And considering the missiles and drones coming out of Iran are only a couple $1,000, $10,000 to $20,000 to construct, the balance of economics, the economics of that warfare, is not one that's going to be favorable to Mr. Netanyahu or to Mr. Trump if this continues on.
Robert Huish, Associate Dean of Research at Dalhousie University's Faculty of Social Science. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.